How are you doing? Happy Wednesday, everyone. It is Wednesday evening. It is 8 p.m. here in Western New York, what means that I open a beer. Today is just you and me doing some Fusion 360, specifically with these Facebook live streams at Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, that you can ask any questions in regards to Fusion you want doing the live stream, and I will stop whatever I'm doing and answer them. That's a little bit different than the live streams I'm doing on YouTube, where I'm kind of like going for 30 minutes trying to add some value to your Fusion experience. But here, any questions, just ask them in the comment area, and I'll stop whatever I'm doing and answer them. Today, we're going to continue down some parts that I have modeled quite a few of, but it's great beginner parts. And that is from an AeroPress, what is kind of like a coffee maker. This here is a funnel that you can use when you're making your coffee with this AeroPress system. So I thought that would be a good one for us to model up. You will see that we're going to use some different techniques in here that is interesting. See, we got John here. See you, John. So this one here, well, where to start, right? This is always the interesting thing when you start modeling things up inside of Fusion 360. It's easy enough to know where the heck you want to end up, but where should you start? See, we've got Mike here too. Good to have you here, Mike from Canada. It's good to see you. Matthew, awesome, cool. So yeah, where should you start with a part like this? I have a tendency to start, I think many times the easiest place, what is probably this cylinder shape here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to model the entire outside up, and then we're going to talk about how to do the inside funnel shape. So enough of me on the camera. Hope you're sitting down relaxing. Again, any questions, just put them in there and we start talking about them. All right, so we got Rob here too. Good to see you, man. Love it. Thank you so much for taking time. So on these live streams on Facebook, I like to start out with a clean slate. So this is Fusion 360, how most people have downloaded. And if you're regular to these live streams, you know what I'm going to do next. There's two things I like to do with Fusion when I start out in the beginning. One is I like to go up to this view cube up here, and I right click on it, and I change, you either have it on orthographic or perspective, and I change it to perspective with ortho faces. So I click on that one. So now if I right click on it again, you can see that that is checked. See, we got Christian here, and the only Icelander, yeah, and Dri. So we got a couple of people from Canada. That's awesome. So, us Nordic and Canadians, we'll go together. And so I changed that. And then down here, you have like this grid button. Click on that. I like to change down here to turn off layout grid. And snap to grid can be kind of nice too to turn off. I think that's kind of like one of the things that I normally do. Mike is asking me where my beer is. Well, Mike, I brought it, and it's Canadian too. So that's good. All right, so clean slate. Let's start out. So like I said before, whenever you're trying to model something up like this, try to kind of like maybe start. Like I said, I normally start with a simple thing. But then break the part into different sections, kind of like in your mind, or at least this is what helps me. So we got a cylinder part here, we're going to model up. Then we got this hexagon shape. You will notice on the side here that it has a little bit of a straight area, I hope you can see that, before it kind of like funnels into this. So that's where I'm kind of like going to start modeling up here. Now I took some dimensions with my verniers that I put on a piece of paper. See, this is why I use CAD, because my drawing skills are horrendous. So let's start out with that cylinder, shall we? So I'm going to go up and create a new sketch. and you're gonna select some kind of a plane to do it on. And I'm just gonna select the bottom plane here, and I'm gonna hit C for circle, and open that up there, and we're gonna make that 48 millimeters in diameter. We're gonna do this in metric. So hit enter twice so we get that diameter. Christian asks, is it possible to set it by default so it always is on the perspective mode? You know what? I'm 99% sure that if you set it to perspective with all the faces, and you save, you go out here and you click the drop down over here, and you save out. I don't even know if you have to save the file. I think you have to save the file out, then it will stick. So normally it will stick. What I do before every live stream on Facebook is I go into the preferences and I say restore to defaults, just so I'm starting out like with a grade. So if you check it to that, then it should stick as soon as you save out. Okay, so we have a circle, and I hope that answers your question, Christian. If you set it and you save out or close out Fusion, it should be good. So now we're going to extrude that, and I like to hit Q for the press pull command. I'm just going to select that diameter, and we're just going to give it a kind of like a length of 38. That is the 38 is the distance from the bottom and up till kind of like this inner section of, that's going to be a radius here. Now the next thing we gotta do, it seems like that maybe logically would be to kind of like work from this area up till the hexagon, but it's actually, what we're going to do is we're going to use a loft function between the round cylinder up to the hexagon. So I'm actually going to jump on purpose. I'm going to jump up and start working on the top surface, this hexagon up here. So what I did was I measured this width here, and I know that the height here is 78 inches. Now we have right now the 38 up here, so to up here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create, like if we click on the origin up here, we have the origin. I'm just going to rotate the model around, hold down Shift and middle mouse button. We have an origin where we have a plane that we sketched our first sketch on. Now I would like one that is 78 millimeters up here. So to do that, I am going to say offset plane. I'm going to select that plane, and every time I get an arrow like this, I just like to drag it in the direction I want, and I'm going to make that 78 millimeters up there and hit OK. So I kind of created a new plane for me to sketch on. So Mike asks a good question. Is it a good practice to start with a new component? Yes, if this was going to become an assembly with multiple parts, then it would be a good idea to start out with this as a new component. So what Mike is talking about is that if there's something called rule number 1 that somebody have named it. Let me just open up a new design up here. So now we have a blank design. So rule number 1 says is before you do anything in here, you should right click up here and say create new component. Or you could actually also just click up here, create new component in here, and then start modeling within that component. Part of this, the reason for this is to make sure that if you have an assembly with multiple components in it, that this history that we are getting down here in the bottom is placed in the right order. The problem, if the way I did it here was I did not create a new component because this is not an assembly, this is just one part. But if I suddenly were going to make this into an assembly, the history in here would not go into if I created any new components. I've made a couple of other videos on this. So if you want to dig deeper into this, send me an email. And you know what? I'll put my email address right in the chat here. Christensen@autodesk.com. And I can refer you to some of these videos with the rule number 1 with creating that component. So to answer Mike's questions, I don't do that if I know that this is just going to be one component. I can see we got Isaac here. Good to see you. So John is asking, can you speak to how you decided what plane to select your start sketch? Well, I kind of, like I said in the beginning, I have a tendency to sometimes start with the easiest part, but I think was what I was kind of like thinking of when I started this design. I looked at this and I was like, okay, what could the cylinder made sense. And whenever you're starting out in a new design, remember that there's only two places you can sketch. It's either on a face or on a plane. And since we don't have a face yet, we can only sketch on a plane, and that would be that origin plane. Now, if you selected this plane, what is kind of like the top, or the front plane, I'm going by what this ordinance says up here, or right plane, there is no rules for this. Now, I have seen people argue about, if you start your sketch on the wrong plane, people are saying the view looks different. Now, the way I have it, because I started on the top plane, of course, here in isometric view, you're kind of looking at the part as if I was kind of holding it up somewhat like this in an angle a little bit, right? So that's what makes sense about starting on the top plane. But I will normally tell people, don't worry too much about that, because again, there is no rules for that, and you can actually change what is top up here. So if I had designed this on the wrong, not the wrong plane, because there's no rules. Let's just, in a new design here, let's create a new sketch. On this face, for example, hit C for circle. And what did I make that one? I made that one 48, right? And then I extruded it out 38. So what we have in this design is the cylinder going this way, and in this design it's going this way if you compare to the top. Now if you suddenly, somebody came to you and was crying that they don't want it like this, they want it like this, first of all, tell them that there is no rules, okay? But secondly, you can actually go, so you can go over here and click on the right view, and then it will make it normal to that right view if you click on it. Then you can actually right click right here, and you can actually say set current view as top. So right now it's the right. You can kind of see that's the right. If I right click and I say set current view to top, notice what happens. Now it's the top. So I actually kind of like just flipped it around. So now it is the same as the original design right here. So I hope that answers your question, John. And all we did up here was kind of like just change the camera angle. We didn't move the model around. Just think about like you're looking at your model with a video camera, and you just kind of like changed the perspective. So I hope that made sense. All right, so what else have we got? We got Darren here. Good to see you, Darren. So Matt asks, if I primarily design things to cut on a plasma table, should I do my design in sheet metal versus in model? That's a good question, Matt. Cheers on that. I think that, and this is just my personal opinion, if you don't have to flatten anything, then if you get your parts already flattened out, or you're cutting parts on your plasma table that don't need any folding, then I would not go into sheet metal at all. I think sheet metal is great if you have bends. You can design your enclosure, sheet metal enclosure, and then you can flatten it out and get that to the plasma table, either by saving it out as a DXF or going through the cam in Fusion. But so that depends on, like, if you have to flatten it, yes, do it in sheet metal. Sometimes if you do sheet metal parts, then in sheet metal you can actually kind of like create the bend lines. You can kind of like etch them, so that could be helpful. So yeah, kind of thing depends on what you're doing. Mike is asking, do you tend to use parameters on your models? I have started using them and find them super useful for making quick changes, especially if you will be doing 3D printing and needing to make tweaks. Love it. So I did a live stream today on YouTube exactly on that. I tend not to. The only times that I really have done it, but where I found it extremely useful, is if I had to present my design in front of a customer. But I didn't, in the past, I didn't do really parts where there would be other changes than maybe go to a customer and show them the model and they were like, ooh, we want it wider, or we want it taller. Then parameters works well. Now, definitely if you're doing 3D printing and you're running into to do that kind of changes, yes, parameters are awesome. Like I said, I did do a live stream exactly today. You can find it up on YouTube. Oh, and it's actually also here on the Facebook stream too, where I talked about using parameters. And if you can't find it or whatever, send me an email and I'll send you a link to that video. That's definitely something that can be extremely powerful. Yeah, I don't see any downfall in using parameters other than if your design gets too big, you might get confused, but that's not really Fusion's fault. All right. So Mike says you don't want to make the $500 mistake. Yes, that's a good thing. My $500 mistake, I made a couple of videos about that. Happened and embarrassing. Okay. So, again, I love this. Throw the questions in. This is exactly what this is about. Any questions you have, throw them in there and we'll try to answer them. That is Wednesday evenings with beer, what it's about. Okay. So, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these. So, because it would just be boring doing them all by myself. So we are mounting this up now, and now we're ready to, so I made it 78 millimeters from here to here. This plane is here. So we're going to start sketching this hexagon up on this top level here. Now, in olden days, I would, well, we got to open a sketch on it, no matter what. You might have had a tendency to start drawing with lines, kind of like the hexagon up here. You can do something, whatever, kind of like floats your boat to make that hexagon like this, and then you could, that's not pretty, then you could start using all the constraints over here, dimensions and all that stuff to actually make it a polygon or hexagon or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do Control Z. That is undo, Control Z. You can actually also hit right up here, undo, and you will undo back. And by the way, here's a really neat function. If you click on that little arrow next to it, look at how you can see the previous commands that you can undo back. And then you can, of course, also go forward. So now, over here in the sketch drop-down, there is a Polygon tool that will do exactly what I was just trying to do. And that brings me up to, like, if you're new to Fusion, I think, we get so eager to try to put something on the screen quick, and many times you miss that some of these tools works. And the reason I'm saying that is this Polygon, I used to use SolidWorks, and it was actually exactly like that one time I had to do a polygon. I drew it up line by line, and somebody was like, why didn't you just use the Polygon tool? And I never knew that was hiding in there. So slowing down a little bit when you're working and kind of like maybe just explore some of the different tools that is in here can really, really help you out. So not a $500 mistake, but it maybe look a little silly. So we're going to select the Polygon tool, especially because I was the teacher. So the Polygon tool here, look at my cursor and see next to it, I get kind of like that Polygon tool here. So I'm going to click on the center of the circle here, left click once, and I'm going to move it out. And I get a, well, this is actually a radius dimension to show up here on this. And I actually measured it as a diameter or as across two flats at 104. Be aware of that in here, in these dialog boxes, you see the 242.488. You can actually do math. So if I type in 104 and then divide it by 2, it will actually give me the right size. So I'm just going to hit enter here. So now 52, you probably could have done that math. Now this one is blue. $500 mistakes that Mike is talking about is we always need to fully define our sketches, and they need to turn black. So the easiest way, whenever you're looking at a sketch like this, and you're thinking, well, why is it blue? Why is it not black? The easiest thing is to move your cursor over a corner, hold down your left mouse button and drag your mouse, and it will show you. So this here shows me that, I can't move it away from the center where I clicked the 52, but it will spin around. So I gotta work on that. Now, one thing I could use is these constraints over here, and I can go over and say I'm going to take this line here, and I'm going to say I'm going to make it a horizontal right here. Click here, and you will see that now it gets this horizontal symbol. It is now fully defined in black. Now, just to show you what I just did, I'm going to rotate the view a little bit. I'm going to hold down Shift, middle mouse button, and kind of like move my mouse. So now you can kind of see how that hexagon or polygon, or you want to call it, sitting up here on the 78 millimeter place. And this is not uncommon when you're working inside of Fusion, that you will create a new plane, an offset plane, to sketch something else on. And now we're actually going to work this way down to kind of connect the two. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Like I said earlier, remember, you can only sketch on either a face or a plane. So if you don't have a face to sketch on, many times creating a plane, and you have all different kinds of options in here, that will help you creating somewhere where you can sketch. That have happened to all of us, where you're getting kind of like stuck and you're not quite sure, how should I proceed. Many times it's just because you don't have the right plane. I have made a couple of videos using these different planes, so if you're looking for some feedback on that, let me know. Okay, so now we're ready to extrude this one. So we have kind of created that sketch. Now I know that there's all kinds of radiuses and fillets on here. We're gonna work on those in a little bit. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna only extrude this one out 10 millimeters, kind of like that little straight portion right there. So I'm gonna hit Q, I'm gonna go over here and hit Q, and then we can either go this way and this way. And this is why I like to drag, because as soon as I drag it down here, you will actually see that it shows we are minus. If I just typed in 10, it's actually going the wrong way. It's supposed to be minus 10 this way here. And I'm just gonna hit OK to that. Now something interesting have happened right now, and that is we've actually created what is called a multi-body by having two bodies in here. Some people would tell you right now that you are working in an advanced environment. Now, so we got this here. Now we kind of got to make that transition between this face and from the polygon to that round face. And for that, we're going to use a command called a loft. Now, if you've ever seen me use the loft, I have always used two sketches, one in one end and one in the other end. But you actually don't need any sketches. It will actually also work between just faces, what is pretty awesome. So if I select our bottom face here, hold down Shift middle mouse button to scroll around and select this other face here, you will then see that we get, Shift middle mouse button, a nice transition between the round and the hexagon. Now you will see that it creates a point and each hexagon because it kind of like got to break down the geometry. Now be aware of there is a lot of great options over here that you can work with. So right now, and I've made a live stream about this too, there's something called G0, G1, G2. It really means how it interacts. So let me go tangent, and you will kind of see how we suddenly get a tangency between this cylinder and this cylinder. So just be aware of, there's some things you can tweak in here. But we're going to leave it right now just being straight out of the box. Click the two faces and leave it at G0 and hit OK. And, something that for many people I think, seem a little like, how the heck would I ever do that? But the Loft command in here is really, really nice. Last Wednesday, we talked about the Revolve command to make the screwdriver. So that was another kind of like some of these tools that does some magic right now. Okay, so we kind of got this created here. Now, I might be ready to concentrate a little bit on the cutting out the material in the center. So this is actually, I think, a pretty good tip if you're brand new to Fusion or to CAD in general, is to start out making kind of all your solids, and then you can come back and do all your cutouts. Like we're gonna cut out the center of this one, and then in the end you could put all your fillets. However, I'm gonna show you a trick about that in a second. Okay, so now where we got to make a hole through this one, I'm going to introduce you to another command that is really nice. So you're getting kind of like two cool commands tonight, and that is the shell command right here. Now, what the shell command does is that if you select a face, then it would hollow anything out to a specific thickness. Let me show you. So if I click on shell and I click on this top face, and then it asks you if you want to put in some kind of a thickness. Now I know I want this one 3 millimeters, so I'm going to type that in. And notice, shift middle mouse button, how it literally cut everything out and made a wall all the way through here that is 3 millimeters. Let me just hit OK for a second. I go up here to create a section analysis so you can kind of like see it a little bit better. If I cut through here, so you will see that it creates a 3 millimeter thickness all the way around, and almost does what I want, because I actually also want the bottom to be gone. So one of the things that is interesting about the shell command is that if you select two faces, then they will both be changed. However, you cannot select the second face if you already have put in a dimension in here. If you already have a thickness in there, you don't want to take it, because then the calculation will already happen. So turn it back to 0, click on that second face, and now I can make it 3 millimeters again. That's like one of these small tricks that I guess, how the heck would you know it? But now, selecting the two faces, the top and the bottom, and then put the thickness, and we just made a cool cutout for this. Pretty cool. We're pretty close to almost being done with this one. So cheers on that. Now, the next thing when we're looking at our funnel here is there's no sharp corners in this one. It's very smooth, and that is all kind of like been done with fillets. Now, this part have different types of sizes of fillets on it. I haven't tried to measure them. I'm just going to kind of like wing it, I guess. But what we can do here is we can go in and add fillets. Now, the fillet command is sitting right up here in a modifier called fillet, or you could also hit the F key on your keyboard, right? All right, Mike says mind blown. Pretty cool, right? A few steps, and we created that funnel. Now let's add some fillets to it. So I'm going to select fillet, and just for the matter of kind of like showing you something, I'm going to go ahead and select all these different lines. I'm just going to hold shift middle mouse button. I'm going to select all these different lines right here, and there's different ways we could select these, but I just want to kind of like show you going around here, selecting these fillets here, and then we're just going to give that one size fillet, like this one, and this one. So I kind of selected everything there in light blue going around it, and I'm going to give it, I don't know, this is where we could start playing around with this one a little bit, right? So maybe we give it a 10 and see how that looks like. So that might look pretty good. I'm going to hit enter. So here you can now see that we get some fillet. Now something happened right there, so that was not too good. Let me go back in and edit that feature. Did I select something different? Huh. I didn't think I did. Whoops. Or maybe I did. Whoops. Whoops, he said. Select these here. I just gotta see if this was something that I did wrong. Oh, see how I don't want to do it right here? So I'm thinking that maybe 10 is too big. Okay. So this is the wonderful thing with live streams, right? So let me just try. I'm not gonna quit on this. I'm not a quitter. Let's just see here if I'm missing something. Select all these. Yeah, see, it does generate. Something is not. All right, so something is, that's interesting that it does that there. Now, if it does something like that for you, what I would recommend you're doing is actually going in and maybe start bringing the fillet down into sections. Because fillets, you know, when I used to work on the shop floor, we would always just be like, just put a fillet on that, right? But the truth is that in real world, there's a lot of calculations going on in here that could mess with that. So let's just try to go in and break the fillet up, and instead of applying it on everything, I'm just going to break it into a couple of different features here. So this is, you know, this is just to show you that, you know, also I sometimes are having some interesting things. So right now it looks uniform, so it looks like it's working right now. So I'm just going to go in and do another fillet. Now you'll see that I'm now getting extra options down here. So, you know, let's see. Let's see if we can do this. Maybe I'm just maybe I didn't select it. I don't know. That looks like that becomes big. There's definitely some interesting development happening when we do it right there, huh? I'm not sure I like how that looks. That's an interesting development. That looks a little bit better. Okay, enough of this. I see we got a couple of comments. Oh, we got David is here. Good to see David. Got Ron here. Good to see you. Matthews, yeah. That was a trick there with selecting the two faces for the shell command. Awesome. All right, so Mike says I missed one. Probably. You know, sometimes it's late at night, right? All right, good. You guys are more awake than I am. Appreciate that. See, we got Chung here. All right, Jordan. Hope you pronounced your name right. Do you have a video that covers resizing things after you have sketched them up? For example, if I use either 4 lines to make a square or use a 2-point rectangle and realize I used the wrong dimensions and need to adjust them. Well, you can go back into the sketch itself and adjust it, right? So right now we have this whole thing modeled up here. If I suddenly realize that, you know, this diameter down here was going to be smaller, I would just have to go back down here in the history, right click on a sketch that is controlling that, and hit edit, and it will bring me back to that point in the history tree with the 48. The other thing, I mean, there's different options in Fusion depending on what you're doing, Jordan, that you can use. That you could actually also, again, this is a little advanced maybe, you could hit Q, and when you select this face, it actually becomes an offset face. And I could actually now manipulate it, make it bigger or smaller. These fill, it might cause some issues, but that's another option in there. Actually, I think I just, yep. So yeah, there's a couple of different ways to do that. I hope that makes sense. All right, so I just wanted to show something here with all my fillets. Talking about this history tree, it's actually good you brought it up, Jordan. I think this is one of the things that is important to know how things kind of works, because down here we can grab left mouse click and we can drag kind of like this timeline back. You can hit the arrows down here, you can click through. So we kind of like creating the first sketch. We extruded that up. We created an offset face. You can't see that. There's that offset face, 78 up if you just joined us. We scat, whoops. Now I hit the wrong button. We sketched a hexagon polygon up on that area. And then we extruded that to 10 millimeters down towards the round one. Then we used the cool lofting function to kind of combine the two without using any sketches, just the faces. And then the cool options of selecting the top face and the bottom face, we shelled that whole thing out. And now I have just added, I ended up bringing this down into 3 different fillets to add some nice radiuses to the part here. Now, see, we got a couple of questions. Let me just show you something cool here. So, what happens down in this history tree, whatever happens down in that history tree happens in order. So, it's literally, and this is, not all CAD software kind of work like this. So, everything is exactly the way that you build it in that history tree. And, you know, that can be a really great power to know you have. Because if we go back and we look at this, if we bring it to this stage right here, well, let's bring it to this stage, right? We had our loft, we had our 3 components, everything looked great. Then I shelled it out, right? Everybody's with me? Now, I actually also wanted to add fillers to the inside of this. It's not just the outside that are fillers, but so far I've only added outside fillers to it. Well, the shell command, when we're using the shell command, the way it works was, you know that, I've already said it 8 times now. Sorry, I repeat myself. We selected the top and the bottom, but what the software really does is it looks at the outside shape to be able to create the inside shape. Let me repeat that. When you're using the shell command, it's looking at what is on the outside to try to bring it inside. So now, where we are now, where we added all these fillets, what would happen if we dragged the shell command in front of the fillets? See what just happened? I brought the shell command from behind before the fillets till after the fillets, and I ended up taking all those fillets we put on the outside, and it's just like that, I got it inside of the inside of it. So let me just repeat that. The way we built it up before was this. I had all my shells, I did my shell, everything was good. Then you watch me, and I struggled, picking all these outside edges to put fillets on it. Well, my next step would maybe to do the inside, but if I drag the shell command ahead of the fillets, then the shell command will look at the outside and mimic that on the inside. So that is one way that you can kind of maybe cheat the system a little bit, and you can create something like this. All right, I think I maybe just missed a couple of questions here. So let me just see if I can scroll back. I don't know if I can scroll back. Oh, yes, I can. Good. Have a sip of my Canadian beer. All right. Stefan. Well, I'm sorry about your back, man. I'm glad you're here, but I'm sorry about your back. David, I'm looking forward to see you sending me your funnel. All right, William, I'm amazed at how simple and clearly lies. Oh, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Jordan, I've tried editing the sketch with limited success. Yeah, you know what, Jordan, I think, Mike was referring earlier to my $500 mistake earlier in the live stream. And that was why. I had a really hard time when I started with CAD of figuring this whole thing out about sketching something up and then extrude it into a 3D shape. I got that, but the whole sketch environment was really confusing to me. And I decided that that whole thing about turning your sketches from blue to black by fully constraining them was freaking a waste of my time. I had stuff to do. I didn't have time to wait for that kind of stuff. And that ended up being the famous $500 mistake that I made. So I think it's definitely the hardest thing to get over when you start working with Fusion is kind of like this sketching thing. And sadly enough, it's the first thing you kind of like got to deal with. But yeah, keep on going on it. Keep on trying. If you have any questions, you should know where to reach me. Okay. All right. Do you have a video on panning and zooming? You do it so much smoother than I do. Matt, actually, I do have one on panning and zooming. Again, you can send me an email and I'll send it to you how I do it. And I think that Stefan said that, you can do that with these 3D mice. Actually, today, I am just spinning around with shift middle mouse button. So this is the same thing as you. I try to do that on Wednesday evenings. It's a bit more fun when I've had a beer. But normally, I'm using one of these devices. And they are pretty expensive. I'm actually doing a review for one of their other devices right now that's going to come out in the video soon. This is a little bit more affordable. Really does pretty much the same dang thing. So watch out for that video. All right, yeah, it's a company called 3D Connection. I love them. I'll type in 3D Connection. I love these devices. I will say, if you are only, playing around with CAD for an hour or two, a week or something, I don't think you need to buy one, to be honest. I'm just going to say that straight out. But if you are doing a lot of CAD, or if you just like cool toys, 3D Connection makes some really good stuff. Okay. So a couple of more things. Oh, so one other thing I want to do to this model here is I want to put a fillet on the top here and on the bottom. That's actually where we had that 3mm thickness. So just go up, hit fillet, and if you select the outer edges like this, and half of 3mm is 1.5. Fusion actually does a pretty good. Oh, I want to select the inside too. See, now you can't select it because you got a dimension in there. Well, what if you select 3? You actually get a you get a nice fillet there. Let's do it to 0, and then go up here and just select the inside of it, and I want to select this too, just to kind of like finish that off there. Okay, so 1.5, and that gives you a really nice full fillet. Some other CAD systems that I work with could not handle this. They can't. Many times CAD systems, this is an important thing just for you to know, for your reference. Let's just turn the origin off. For your reference to know that CAD systems in generally don't like zeros. So if like two lines meets at an intersection or something like that, CAD system has a terrible way to handle it. But I think this is pretty good. Now, I know that these lines stands out. I could actually also put a full round on here. I know that these lines stand out a lot, but remember that when we're working inside of Fusion, we're normally with hidden lines shown. You can do that down in display. If you go to Visual Style, normally we have shadable visible edges on. Normally, if you're looking in real life, you would actually see it, as a shaded. So that will be a little bit more realistic. I do always model with shadable visible edges. You just got to remember that it looks a lot, I would say, worse or whatever it is. Now, what else? So, if you have one of these Curix, AeroPress, funnels, I don't want to leave this out. You will see that there is 3 a little bit closer. 3 tabs on this. I don't want to leave those out. Now, so to model those, we're going to do something pretty neat here. We're actually going to go back into what we already kind of used. Shift, middle mouse button, we can rotate it around here. I'm actually going to create, well, so here's the thing about that. The thing is that these, as you can see, start up here somewhere. I don't know where it is, 20 millimeters up or something. And then they go up till this surface up here. And they have some good radiuses on it too. There's 3 of them. So let's start modeling one of them up. Now, I'm going to use another offset plane. I hope this is not right in your face. I'm going to use another offset plane. So I'm going to take that plane we have down here, and I'm going to offset it up so I can start sketching up there. So let's do that. So I can turn my origin back on, right, sitting right over here on the light bulb. Shift middle mouse button, rotate it around a little bit. And I'm going to do an offset plane. I'm going to select that bottom plane down there. And if you drag the arrow, then you can kind of see that. We're going to make it 20 millimeters. Hit OK. So now I have another plane, construction plane, sitting right in here, right in there. So I'm going to start a sketch on that. I'm going to say create sketch. So I'm not selecting the bottom. I'm selecting that one that is 20 millimeters inside of the part. And you will see in a second what I'm kind of like, what I'm doing. Now, looking at my part here, I notice that this tab is in line with this. But if you look inside of Fusion, you will see that right now that up is kind of here. Now I could start sketching it over here sideways, but somehow in my vision I want to make some kind of stuff up here. You can actually go up here, and there's some arrows up here on the view cube. If I click on this arrow right here, you can actually rotate it around. So if you didn't know that, that might be a pretty good tip. Okay, so let's start sketching a little bit of a rectangle that kind of like goes up here. So you could either use the 2-point rectangle, but I'm actually just going to do a couple of lines. I'm going to click here, and as I'm going in here, I'm actually going to snap to kind of like this, the diameter we have, and I'm just going to sketch a line that goes up, over, and down to about where I want it. Now, I did this on purpose. You see that, hit escape to get out of the line command. You will see that we got a vertical here, but I didn't get one here, which means that if I move this around, you can see that this is not great. So I'm going to fix that first, hitting the constraint over here, select this line, and that becomes straight. Now, of course, now you notice that dang thing is not center. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite commands. Now, if you're brand new, this might be going a little fast. Come back and rewatch the video. It will also be up on YouTube over the weekend if you can't find it here on Facebook. So I'm going to go up and create another line. I'm going to draw a straight line up here, and I'm going to place that line, hit the little green check mark to finish the line. So we have a line right here. One of my favorite constraints over here is down at the bottom. It's called symmetry. Now, the symmetry, I select symmetry. The way it works is select one point, another point, and then a vertical line, and bam, now these two are symmetrical. Okay, so now I can just add the dimensions I want. So D on the keyboard for dimensions, and I don't know what we should make this one. I have no idea. 6 maybe. And how tall are we gonna make it? I don't know. 4. I'm just making this up right now. Actually, let's make it 3 so it goes down to this area here. So let me just shift middle mouse button to rotate around, if I can get it right, and notice that we are sketching here, right? On that 20 millimeter area. So I hope that that makes sense. Now let's hit Q for press pull. Select the 2 halves, and if I move this way, you will see that now it becomes a solid. You know, I picked up my 3D mouse that is attached, and and it messed up my orientation. This is how I move my 3D mouse. So I'm not going to do it, but I just wanted to get it over here. So I'm sketching on that 20 millimeters. Now I wanted to go, you see how it changes to red? That means it's going to be a cut. I wanted to go up here. So instead of doing a distance, that's what we're doing right now. You see how by default is a distance. It will just go however long we want. We can go over here and say instead of distance up to an object, and we can select a face, and it will actually be smart enough, shift and middle mouse button, to move it up and match it, just hit OK to that, to that face there. So that's how we can create one of those. Now I actually want 3 of them, so I want 2 more. I could sketch them up, or you could go over and use in the create drop down, go down, click pattern, and a circular pattern will take this one. Now I'm just going to select the faces of it. So I'm going to select the faces of our part here, like that. So I select the faces. See over here, the 4 selected. It's looking for an axis to rotate it around. I'm going to select the green axis because I want it through the center of the cylinder here. And by default, it gives you 3. It's just my luck that that's what we want. Hit OK, and we now just got the other 3 placed here. Now, 2 more things to do to this one is to maybe add some fillets to this one. Now, again, we could have done that before we did the circular patterns, of course, and it's selected, and then they will go all the way around. But pretty much following the same pattern as I did before, go to the modify fillet, and you could select the different axes, or the different, edges you want. Axes, edges. It's late. Right, if we selected these here, and I don't know how big we want to make them, maybe 1. Gives us a nice little radius on that. And they're a little bit bigger than we have them on the model. But the last thing I'm going to do to this part here is I'm going to change the appearance of it. So I'm going to right click out in space, and I'm going to go to appearances. And this is really just to make it look right. Now by default, Fusion always start out as steel. But this is clearly plastics. I'm going to go down to plastic, and there's some different types of plastics. And you can go out and play with all these different ones. I'm going to just make it black. Since I want the whole thing black, I'm just going to drag, left mouse click, and drag the appearance up on top of the steel. And you will now see that we kind of get this plastic funnel model up here. And I think that looks pretty decent, right? Like if you wanted to 3D print your own version of this, then you should be pretty close, I think. Now, one thing I normally don't do in these live streams, but what I probably should have done was we should save this as we have been going along. So let's definitely make sure we save this right now. So I'm going to click Save icon up here, the floppy disk, and you can of course choose where you want to leave it, in what folder, and then you should give it a name, part number, whatever you want, and hit save, and it now has been saved as a version 0 because I didn't save it prior to this. So now if you hit the little 9 squares, it will appear over here, and now it's saved. So with that, what I'm going to try to do now, I haven't tried this before. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to say share public link. This is the way I share let me just do that a little bit slower. This is how I share anything with anybody else. Go over here, right click, share public link. This dialog comes up. I trigger the first one, and then you will get a URL where you can download this funnel. Now you can, if you want to, put a password. If you click over here, you can put a password on it. But I'm just going to click copy, and let me just go over to the live stream over here and paste it in. And I don't know if that's going to show up in the live. Oh, I missed some. Yep, shows up right here, and you can now see that that one showed up. You know what? I scrolled down. I didn't realize that. Oh no, you guys have asked some questions or said something. All right, let's see here. It didn't update. All right, yep, like Jordan says. Oh, let me see here. Don't know what the price. Scraddle says shell is essentially a linear bulk offset command. You know what? You could kind of say that actually. That's not a bad way to say it. That it's kind of like offsetting whatever is around it in sport. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. So Jordan, like Jordan says, yeah, tonight I'm not using the fancy 3D connection device. I'm a big fan of them, but you don't need them. They're in the same. Oh, so you. Yes, Mike says once you learn a 3D mouse, it's hard to go back. Yeah, I have actually taken some breaks, jumping around a little bit, but yes, I prefer to have it. But like I said, you don't have to get it. Darren is saving up for his Space Navigator. Man, good for you. All right. Cost about $300. Yep. The smaller one, yeah, the smaller one is $100, and that was actually what I started out with. Back in probably like 2008, 2009 was when I used a 3D mouse the first time. And the reason I started using it was because I actually started feeling the clicking with my mouse after a long day at work. And I went out and bought the $100 version, and that was kind of like what sold me from that point on. David asks if you have other video on coffee makers. Well, I do have. I made we modeled up the starting pin for AeroPress in the mold video series. So if you search Fusion 360 mold, you will get that whole series. The first video, I modeled that part up. And on one of these live streams on Facebook, we also did the scoop. I don't know how many parts we have left, but we have a few parts left. All right. Stefan says, I think I'm going to end up buying one. Started learning CAD. Yeah, man. I mean, you know, like I said, I would say it like this, and I'm completely honest. You know, this thing here is pretty expensive. Now, it has all these customizable buttons, what is absolutely awesome. I don't really use them. So, for me, I can get away with the $100 version, to be honest. And it's the same. This is the same in both of them. So, wouldn't sweat that too much. Which mouse do you recommend for CAD? So that's a good question too. So I'm all out through 3D connections, and mainly because that now where I have made some blog posts and stuff about them, they actually have sent me this to borrow. I am using, and I don't know if you can see this. I have a little bit of a delay here. Hang on, let me just pull up so I can make sure that I can see myself. I am using, I'm using two different mouses right now because they just sent me a set to test out. This is their CAD mouse that has a wire on it. And then they also have this mobile mouse that is a little bit thinner. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a video on this where you're going to get a lot more detail on this. This is kind of like their mobile kit. They have a mobile kit that comes with a mouse and one of the small ones, I think for a couple of $100. This mouse here is about $100, and it's really slick looking. Again, it actually has 3 buttons and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a scroll wheel. It's really nice. I actually don't mind that it's wired. I thought that was going to be a problem, but before that, I have used Logitech mouses. I think I used to use one that was called M705 700 series. Had a battery life that you wouldn't believe it. But I'm using right now 3D Connection, and I really like the way it feels in my hand, but it's nothing special. Like, it's just another mouse that they make. It was great. So, I hope I don't oversell that too much. Yeah, there's nothing special about that. All right. Trong says that Logitech MX Master. Yes, I think, is that the $100 one, the expensive one? I used to use the $100 one they had. Really loved it, and that felt very much like this one. So they're same price point, the $100 ones. But then I had to go out and buy a new mouse, and I went with the $50 version, the half price, because I had to pay for it for myself. And that was I'm pretty sure it's an M700 series. And like I said, it's a little bit smaller. Battery life was absolutely amazing. Now, like I said, I just got this the other day. This is a bit smaller version of the bigger one here. I don't even know, I haven't looked up what the smaller one costed. So it's a little bit smaller in your hand. It doesn't have a big, I like a big curve here, but that's preference. All right, guys, that was about all that I had planned on showing tonight on this absolute beginner. You should be able to get the link now. It's in the chat. You know, if you ever want to get these models afterwards, pretty much any of the live streams models that I do, I try to remember to save them. So if you email me, lars.christensen@autodesk.com, I'll be happy to send you any model. All right, Danielle, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I was wondering if you ever done a tutorial on drawing a U-pipe. I'm wondering if the start to CAD, like an intake tube. I haven't done Y. It's not a U. Y. Sorry, I need another beer. A Y shape. Y. I did do one on piping, a live stream on piping, that you could kind of like use that technique. So if you go to YouTube, you search piping, then you should be able tubing. I would think you would search tubing. That then you will find it. If you can't find it, lars.christensen@autodesk.com, and I'll be happy to send you that. All right, guys. If there's any other questions, throw them in there. If there's not, as always, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join for these live streams. These Wednesday nights, I really just ask any questions. I just gotta make sure that I didn't miss any questions. And I'll try to answer them here. This video here is recorded. You'll find it here on the Facebook, but also I will make sure it's up on YouTube over the weekend, so you can find it up there. That's it, guys. Really hope that you have an awesome week. Hope this was useful. And you know what? Until the next time, have an awesome day. Thank you so much, guys.